All right, another thing, before you put that piece of drywall up on top of this one, the one that is right over top of all your water lines, I recommend take a flashlight and double check down behind the wall, make sure nothing is leaking. So you just look down in the wall. Now, I've already done this a couple times, and look down and check to make sure nothing's leaking. I hope everything turned out good for you. All right, my second way that I cut around outlet boxes is with my Dremel, with this attachment right here. You need a bit like this. This bit does not cut right on the end. It cuts down here, but the end, there's no cutter on the end. It's just flat. Now we're gonna measure over from whichever wall, this wall. If you have a wall over here, you can measure that way, so I wanna find the center. That's 18. So 18 over, I'm just going to write it here. I'm going to get a lot of mud there. Then I'm going to go up, and I can see my X on the floor where I marked where my stud is. I just got to go right to the right of that a little bit. So the center of that is 40. So up 40. All right, I got to cut a hole for this drain. I have an air conditioner right on the other side of this wall. So let me cut that. That's pretty simple if you have a drill. Where's my drill? All right, I got up 40 and over 18. So 18 right here, up 40. Right there. 18 right there. All right, that's my box. I'm going to put a screw in over here. I can see they're off of these X's just a little bit. So now you don't want to put the screw in all the way. Just tighten it up a little bit. And then you're going to come all the way over here to this side. Put a screw in like that. Just tightens that up a little bit. And we're going to take our Dremel, or if you have a Roto-Zip, which is probably a little nicer, I'm going to plunge cut it into there, into that X, and I'm going to run over, and I want to go counterclockwise because the way this bit spins, it tends to want to go to the left. So if you go clockwise, it's going to want to tend to go away from the box. Oh, and I already did this, but I do have hot wires in there, so make sure you have your wires bent and all the way pushed in the back of that box. That, and I made my bit should only cut just a little bit over ½ an inch. And I'll go up and over. Now it's definitely a little trickier. I've done this before, so if you do it, just really take your time. That gives me perfect cut. Now I don't like to put a screw right next to those boxes, just kind of come up a little bit. These ones. There. Better. All right, I have a hole I have to patch. I already patched this hole once, but I've seen them do this on the internet, and I've never done this before, so we're gonna see how easy or hard this is. They call it a California patch. So I got a piece of drywall that is bigger than that hole by maybe an inch on both sides, maybe a little more than an inch. Let me take my hearing protection out so I quit yelling at you. Sorry, I'm yelling. We're gonna make this a little bit smaller. Straight down. Straight down. I'm going to cut a little deeper on this down on the floor. All right, there we go. That's what we got. Now they just snap that and they pull that off like that. Snap that. Pull that off. Pull that off. Snap that. Pull that off. I don't like these little jagged edges. I think I'm going to go cut it with some scissors. All right, now I started putting some mud around that, and I did put some water in my mud. Oh, this will make you know, now you'll know how easy or hard it is. I did a little drywalling in my life.
Just coat that edge. Wax it.
All right, like that. He also took his patch and he coated the patch down here in the cracks. Or down in the corners, whatever you want to call that. And we put that up in there. See, I had a board in there. I already did this once, but I wanted to try this. Put that in there. And he pushed it in on the corners. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. Maybe I need my wider knife. I don't know, what do you think? Sand it down, or let it dry, I'll sand it down, put another coat on. I guess that'll work. All right, now, my first thing I like to do is go around and take my smaller knife here and just go like that to all the screws. Now I'm going to show you how I lay my tape on this joint right here. You got to put some mud down. Now, I'm probably not going to make this look as easy as the professionals because I'm not a professional. I'm going to roll some tape out. Let's just see what the length needs to be. This is definitely not how the professionals do it. This is how I do it. All right, we lay a piece of tape over that joint. Then I like to put a little bit more mud on put some mud on my knife and then run it along that tape. Just kind of helps it slide along that tape. Definitely takes some practice. But a basement is a nice place to practice. Take my wider one here. This is just how I do it. The guys that do this all day long will make this look way easier. But if you want to practice, like I said, practicing in your basement is probably a good place to do it. That's about it, and then let it dry, sand it a little, and put another coat on. When I'm going down on this side, I like to just kind of bend my knife a little bit there, and it feathers that in. All right, I'm gonna leave that like that, and then tomorrow I'll sand that a little bit and put another coat on. But these joints do not have to be that wide. I'm gonna guess maybe for me, it's probably only gonna be maybe down to here. Now, if you're doing the joints on the end, them joints are gonna be a lot wider because you don't have those tapered edges. So I hope you liked watching somebody that was definitely not a professional at that. It just takes some practice. And I haven't done this in a couple years, so hopefully that helps you out a little bit. All right, I'm gonna try to show you how I do a corner. I like having this inside corner trowel. The professionals probably usually don't use this either, but I think this makes it easier. First, I take one of my bigger trowels and I fill my corner in with some mud. And it's also probably a little better, I'm hoping I don't mess this one up, but it's probably better sometimes just to wait till the next day. I have a party coming up and I really like to have a toilet in here. And I already have a piece of tape cut to the length of my wall. And this tape has a little crease in the center, so you're going to want to bend this. Bend it into a corner. And we're going to stick that in the corner. Use one of my knives. I'm going to try to get a little bit of mud on my corner trowel. I just think it slides easier on this tape. I don't like to start all the way at the top because I'm always afraid I'm going to start pulling that tape down. So I'll start hearing this down a little bit. Just start pushing into that corner. And wipe some of that off. I definitely think that makes it easier. Put that down one more time. Good enough for me. Take my clean up these edges. I don't have as much to sand tomorrow. It's one thing, if you're doing this by yourself, you're probably going to end up having to sand more than a professional. All right, my first coat of mud had 1 day to dry, and this is how I like to see it. In the center there where it covered up that crack, it looks like my tape sunk in a little bit. So that's what I like to see. Now I'm going to take my 8-inch knife and I'm just going to run this over some of these spots. See if there's you could also probably just take your 12-inch knife, since that's going to cover up that whole beveled spot here. If nothing's sticking out of there, then you'll be ready to put your second coat on there. All right, so I gotta do that all over my whole wall, and I'll even maybe run up and down the corners a little bit, try to take any of the big chunks off. And then if you want, you could sand just a little bit, and then you'll be ready for your second coat. All right, I got my mud ready. And like I said before, I like to put a little water in there and mix it up, kind of thins it out a little bit. Now we're gonna go for our second coat. I like to wipe my corners off a little. is about as good as I'm gonna get. Feather these edges a little better. Doesn't look like professional, but a lot better than paying somebody a couple thousand or $1,000 to come do this. All right, here's another tip. I'm on like my 3rd coat of mud, and this is starting to look pretty good right here. Now, when you get to this point and you're sanding your drywall, if you take a light like this and start shining it down the side of your drywall, it's going to point out all the spots, all the imperfections that you got. So there might be a lot of little easy things that you could probably sand and fix it, make it look even nicer. I see one little spot right here. Oh, you can't even see that. I don't know if that sticks out. Can you see that like that? No. I put my light up here. There's like a little square here that I could sand out real simple. And there's these little spots here. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but you shine a light down the side of your drywall and you're going to see all the spots that you missed. So sorry I showed you that. All right, we're on like day, I don't know, I think this is day like 4 or 5, and I got my drywall pretty much 90% done. I have to sand this, and then I'm going to paint today. And yesterday I did get my grout done. I know, like I said before, I'm not telling you a real lot about all this, but I will give you a couple tips to doing your grout. And another tip about drywall. I think I forgot to tell you this, but all right, so you got your little pan full of mud and you're doing your drywall, and you get done for the day. Don't try to take the mud that's in your pan and put it back into your bucket. Very bad idea, because there could be little pieces in here that started to dry up, and if you get any of that little bit of dried up drywall into your nice new mud, it's gonna really upset you when you're trying to go use your mud again the next day and you have big lines in your mud when you're trying to, you throw some mud on your knife and you're running it down and you get a big line and it drives you crazy. That, and another thing, I should have probably showed you this, but when you're scooping your mud out of your bucket and you put it into your pan, when you're done, I like to take the mud that's in the bucket and take one of my knives and smooth that mud all out. Keep it nice and flat down in there, because if you get that, I guess, if you get that mud up in that bucket and it's all flapped up onto the sides and stuff, some of that could start to dry and mess up your mud. So just keep that flat in your bucket. Sometimes I even put a little bit of water on top of that. That'll help keep that from drying up. Plus I like to put a little water in my mud anyway, so sometimes that helps. See this mud here? Now I put my 12-inch knife across there and it lays pretty much flat. There's no space in between here. So these sections are real easy to do. Plus I have this nice white t-shirt on that's probably too small because I think it shrunk. So that's also making this job better. And I combed my beard out. If you have a beard and you comb it, things go better. Well, I hope some of these tips with my drywall will help you out a little bit.